Isla de Aves, or Aves Island, is a Caribbean dependency of Venezuela. It has been the subject of numerous territorial disputes between the neighboring independent islands, such as Dominica, and European mother countries of surrounding dependent islands, such as the Netherlands. It lies to the west of the Leeward Islands chain at 15.67167 degrees north, 63.61639 degrees west, 15.67167 minus 63.61639. It is 375 meters in length and never more than 50 meters in width, and rises 4 meters above the sea on a calm day. Under a particular interpretation of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, it could be classified as a rock, which would only give Venezuela a 12 nautical mile economic zone. However, Venezuela claims it is an island, which grants it a 200-mile exclusive economic zone. Mostly sand, a small portion has some scrubby vegetation. It is sometimes completely submerged during hurricanes. It is 185 kilometers southwest of the closest land, Montserrat, 225 kilometers west of Dominica, and 547 kilometers north of the Venezuelan mainland. For some time the island has been in danger of eroding altogether, and Venezuelan authorities are considering ways to protect it, along with the territorial claims to the Caribbean Sea which radiate from Isla Aves. The impact of Hurricane Allen in the 1980 Atlantic hurricane season divided it into two parts, but accretions of coral have subsequently reunited it. On August 17, 2007, the force of Hurricane Dean severely eroded the island. The island is a resting and breeding place for seabirds and the green sea turtle. Its low profile makes it a hazard to navigation, and many ships have been wrecked here. Aves Island is a particularly rare amateur radio entity, under the ITU prefix YV0. A 2006 expedition by operators to the island required 14 years of planning. Though one member suffered a fatal heart attack, over 42,000 contacts were made during the week-long stay. History. The island was most likely discovered by Alvaros Sanz in 1584, though it was not settled. It was subsequently claimed for Great Britain, Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands. Throughout the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, the inhabitants of the Dutch islands St. Eustatius and Saba regularly visited Aves to collect turtle and bird eggs. In 1854, a U.S. captain discovered the abundant quantities of guano on Aves, and systematic collection started not long after. Both the Dutch and Venezuelan authorities found out and protested. The Dutch sent a warship to Aves. Its captain found Americans loading guano. He informed them that the Dutch considered Aves to belong to the Netherlands. The Dutch authorities on Curaçao, under whom St. Eustatius and Saba fell, sat down with the Venezuelans and together decided to find a mutually acceptable sovereign to decide about the ownership of Aves Island. The Queen of Spain was accepted by both parties, and in 1865 Isabella II ruled on the issue, deciding in favor of the Venezuelans. However, Isabella's judgment acknowledged the time-honored rights of the inhabitants of the Dutch islands St. Eustatius, Saba and St. Martin to fishing in the waters around Aves. As this was the main issue the Dutch had, they accepted the ruling. Later, some Dutch historians argued that Isabella's advisers could have mixed up Aves with Las Aves archipelago lying between Bonaire and Los Roques, just off the coast of Venezuela. In the meantime, in 1859, the administrator of St. Eustatius granted a concession to collect guano in Aves to Edward Green, Keenan Amp Co. in Baltimore at F. 2.50 per ton. He decided that, even though Aves was never permanently settled by the Dutch, the inhabitants of Statia and Saba had made use of the island longer than anyone can remember, which constituted proof of possession. Quote, he gave a provisionary concession and asked the governor in Curaçao to confirm. The governor, meanwhile, had received a request to mine guano in Aves from a group of businessmen on Dutch Street, Martin, who had assured themselves that Aves was recognized as a possession of the Dutch government. From 1878 to 1912, the island was again occupied by American guano miners until supplies were eventually exhausted. Isla de Aves was included in Venezuela's territorial reorganization done by President Joaquin Crespo in 1895. By 1905, Isla de Aves was a municipality called Municipio Oriental, part of Colón Federal Territory. In 1950, a Venezuelan Navy fleet consisting of 2 patrol boats and 1 transport boat were sent to take control of the island with a group of soldiers. On June 2, 1978, the Venezuelan Navy were sent to set up a scientific naval base named Simon Bolivar on the lee side near the southern tip of the island, constructed as a platform built on stilts partially in the water, which was permanently inhabited by a group of scientists and military personnel. On March 28, 1978, Venezuela, using Aves Island as its reference, agreed its maritime borders with the USA between Aves Island and Puerto Rico in the United States-Venezuela Maritime Boundary Treaty. This treaty came into force on the 24th of November 1980 after it was ratified by both parties. On June 17, 1980, Venezuela agreed with France that longitude 62 degrees 48 minutes 52 seconds west should be the maritime boundary between Aves Island and Guadeloupe and Martinique. During a visit to Venezuela, Dominica Prime Minister Roosevelt Scarrett, in June 2006, stated that Aves Island belongs to Venezuela, ending the territorial claim. Historical maps, articles and papers. Island talk for CARICOM. Venezuela Barbados Nation News. OECS searching for Bird Island solution. Caribbean Net News. Shock over Bird Island. Barbados Advocate News. Drama over Bird Island. Barbados Advocate News. OECS wraps Caracas claim to island. Barbados Nation News. CARICOM to meet over Aves Island. Barbados Nation News. History proves Venezuelan ownership of Isla de Aves. Vice President Rangel thinks that the empire is behind claim to Aves Island.